The death of Llywelyn too. Each man looked different from afar, but in their hearts, you know, they bore the same scars. And it was go down, down where the devil is fighting. Strangest thing I've ever seen. It was go down, down where the devil is fighting.
Croeso and welcome to Tales for Wales, a Welsh history podcast brought to you by two boozy idiots. I'm Franks and I'm joined by Jack. We've been friends for about 20 years and both have a genuine love for Welsh history and comedy, so we thought we'd try and blend the two and put it into a bloody old podcast. We're going to talk through famous Welsh battles, events and people, whilst having a few cans and trying to shine a light on otherwise dim-lighted history. To stay up to date with everything from the pod, get around our Twitter account, Tales for Wales, that's the number for... without much further ado, what the bloody hell have you been up to? David Jack Newby.
Not too much, mate. I was going to talk a bit about. I think I was texting you at the time, like sort of little snippets of the hell I was in on that work away day I went on.
Oh yeah, yeah, it sounded grim.
So a bit of background for our lovely listeners. We went up to the Avon Valley for like some activities, team chats, and shit like that. The place is actually really lush. I don't know if you've ever been there, but
yeah, it is
nice.
It's
like stunning views. It's got like a big dam there, like a reservoir and everything.
Yeah.
It's lush.
Can I tell
We
you
also
something?
did a bit of history
archery
as well.
Oh, you nerd! Fucking nerd! Archery is so lame.
I've actually got a newfound connection to my Welsh heritage by mastering the bow. So don't make fun of it, actually, mate, or I'll
Were
come
you
round
good
and
at
shoot
it?
you. So I'll tell you what, my first shot I did, I got a 9, which is just outside the bullseye, and I was like, this is fucking piece of piss. But the next one just flew straight over the target. I was absolutely shocking for the rest of it. But so I peaked a bit too early. But I got a newfound sort of respect for the old longbowmen of old.
You nerd.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you have a story to add then about?
Oh yeah,
Avon
yeah.
Valley or something?
Only because it's where the Ruhr, the German gangbusters, tried to blow up the place, to blow up that dam, but they had loads of pillbutters. And there's a famous UK person who defended the Elan Valley against the dam busters and the what those bombs they used to drop. The Germans used to drop.
Were they dam busters, or were the dam busters the ones that the UK
The other way
dropped?
around. Yeah, sorry, it's
I
the
can't remember.
German, it's the Nazi dam busters. They tried to do a similar thing here. They tried to drop those bombs. It's in Peep Show where they reference, you know, he goes, "I'm the Ruhr," and they start throwing like bricks at each other.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's
just
that's,
one for us history lovers right there.
Carry on from the archery. So you got a 10.
Oh no, not quite a 10, a 9.
Oh,
so
yeah,
not even full marks. Yeah, I got a 9 on my first shot. Believe it or not, that was the highlight of the week. The couple of days I was away.
I just hate archery because it's the same vibe as a paintball marshal. They're always so serious about it.
Yeah, the guy who was organising it was very much like that. I couldn't help but notice. He was like, when you're in the firing zone, you aim down. You do not lift your bow.
Yeah. If I see you with your mask up, I will take you off. It's your... All right, Marshal.
You do not walk into the firing zone when there is a live arrow in someone's bow. And it was just like, yeah, obviously I'm not going to walk in front of people fucking shooting arrows, you dozy prick.
It is good. It is. I just they take it so serious. Like you've been bullied all your life, and now you've got an ounce of power. You're gonna fucking run with it to the hilt.
I thought you were having a go at me then, saying like you've been bullied all your life and now you chose this shit
You
sport. I was
fucking
like,
loser.
fucking hell. Ouch. I don't know. I was meant to start this to moan about the sort of corporate aspect of this, but instead I'm just being bullied for like having a modicum of enjoyment from archery.
I do hate. I think I'm just not very good at it because it's really hard to pull it back. So I just instantly think, well, it's shit.
It's fucking solid, mate. Yeah,
It
and
is,
I
isn't
thought,
it?
because I've watched a couple of YouTube videos on archery. I know it sounds sad. It's the as in like those, you know, those ones I watch where it's like an expert judges like film scenes. I've seen a
Yeah.
couple of them, and I thought I had some pointers. Great on paper, not so much in practice. I fucking just didn't know what I was doing. I could make heads or tails of it.
So how was the rest of it?
So the corporate-y stuff, that's where you're gonna love this, right? So after the archery and everything, our first kind of chat, you know, like the group chats they do.
Yeah.
The topic, they said, the topic's on the board. And I looked over and I read, discuss your hopes and fears. Oh, how my eyes rolled. You wouldn't believe it. I thought, is that a bit fucking deep, you know, for like a little corporate away day?
My
But they
fears
obviously
are,
meant in regard to work.
yeah, but maybe express that. 'Cause fears are dying alone, being outed as a paedophile when I'm not a paedophile, being stitched up in
Yeah,
some
I was
kind
thinking, what are they after? Like, what are your hopes? Oh, well, I hope the whole, Ukraine thing sorts itself out. I mean, that'd be good. I mean, world peace, if we can get to there,
Yeah.
climate change. Where does it end?
And they go, well, what we really think is we need to make marketing work better with sales. It's like,
Project Zeus. Well, the thing is, it was so bloody pointless, that thing, because obviously it's work-related hopes and dreams. Just such a waste of time. Everyone obviously had basically the same answer. You might as well sum it up as hopes were positive things and fears were just the equally negative things you'd expect from work. It was just a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
And then I was texting you in the night, wasn't I? Because we finally got around to, there was a surprising amount of booze there, actually. I was impressed that they'd stocked up so much.
Yeah.
So then there was that slight chance that we might have a fun night. But of course, it's also stunted because all the bosses are there. You don't know most of the people, so you don't know what their stance on the word cunt is, and etc.
Yeah.
You're so stifled, you can't really enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
So even though there's loads of booze, no one really took that much advantage. So I don't know. It got to the point where all the people I like, they stayed up for a bit and then went to bed. So it got to that desperation where I'm trying to sort of get some momentum going with people I don't really know, and I don't really know how to handle them, So, you'll like this as well. I spilled someone's drink at one point as well. Once again, I was playing the fool of the group. But I knocked his cider over, and I was like, oh shit, I'm sorry, mate. And I didn't know where anything was in this place, so I was running around trying to find some kitchen roll. Eventually went to the bogs with some toilet roll, and of course that was going all bitty then when I was wiping it up, and people going, "You're ruining it! You're not cleaning up, or you're getting the bits in the carpet." And all. I was like,
you going,
God,
sorry, my liege, let me clean
nightmare.
this off you, my liege. I'm ever so sorry. I didn't mean to do it, my lord. Cripes and cribbins.
May I fetch you another horn of ale, my liege, please? I beg my pardon.
Was it free booze?
Yeah, all free. I bought half a bottle of rum with me just on the off chance that they didn't have enough there. And when I told people that, they looked at me a bit wide-eyed, really? And I was like, nah, joking, mate. No, not joking. It's in my room. There was another guy there who bought a whole litre of whiskey, so I didn't feel so bad after that.
Oh, he sounds a bit of a ledge.
How about you, mate? What have you been doing?
Well, maybe we'll save that because we're doing 2 back-to-back episodes and nothing's happened this week, so I'll save my anecdote for the next pod. But it's a goodie. It's quite a goodie. It's quite a funny little tale.
You've piqued my interest, mate.
Yeah. What's that thing when they say, I was curious and now I'm intrigued?
Bloody Django.
Oh, is that what it is?
Was it? You had my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
Yeah. It involves a fart at a party, so that's the tale for next week.
Oh, that's a hell of a sizzle reel, that. You got me. I'm in.
All right, do you want to start giving us the... So this week we're going to be talking about the tragic battle of... I call it Orewin Bridge, but what do you call it?
I kept saying Orewin, but it's spelled Orewin, isn't it? Orewin Bridge.
Orewin, yeah.
But I suppose if we just... I'm probably going to mistake and say Orewin Bridge quite a bit, so apologies for that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That wasn't me, by the way. That was the dog burping, if you heard that.
I can hear it slurping in the background.
Oh, yeah. He's saddled up right next to me. It's very cute, but he's breathing. He's trying to breathe directly into the mic. I'm having to palm his nose away.
I'll pass over to you to talk about this week's episode, which is the Battle of Orewin Bridge.
So yeah, the Battle of Orewin Bridge, also known as the Battle of Irvon Bridge, happened on the 11th of December, 1282. The battle pitted the Welsh against the combined forces of the English and the Welsh martial lords. So these were lords of lands that sat on the English and Welsh border, basically. For a bit of background, this wasn't the first time the Welsh and English monarchs had come to blows. Llywelyn ap Gruffudd, the Welsh prince, had warred with Edward I of England years earlier in 1277. Edward overran North Wales with a huge army, and Llywelyn was forced to accept humiliating terms and concede large areas of Wales to England. The 5 years that followed this were fraught with tension between Llywelyn and Edward over a myriad of issues, including lawsuits and a rising unrest from the Welsh against their English rulers in the lands that Llywelyn was forced to give up. A new Welsh revolt began in 1282 and was actually started by Llywelyn's brother Dafydd. He captured Hawarden Castle and slaughtered its garrison on Easter of that year, a move that infuriated King Edward. There's varying sources on sort of why Dafydd did this, but it seems likely it was due to a land dispute not going in his favour. This was something that used to happen quite a lot back then when it was a Welsh lord versus an English one. I think it happened to Glyndŵr at some point later down the line as well in the 15th century as well, didn't it? It's a classic setup. Yeah. This attack led to an uprising in many parts of Wales. Eventually, Llywelyn declared war on Edward again on behalf of the Welsh people. That's the sort of lead up to it, if you like, and sort of why this war is going on in the first place. But leading up to the actual battle itself, Edward was using the same tactics he'd used in the previous war to subdue the Welsh. So he pushed large armies through his lands in North Wales, occupying as far as Conwy and staging incursions south from Anglesey in order to subdue Llywelyn's allies and anyone who supported him, basically. The Welsh showed a gritty resolve, though, and beat the English in a number of battles, including the Battle of Llandale Fawr and the Battle of Moelyddon. We actually did another episode on Moelyddon as well. I'd highly recommend it, mainly because it's an awesome episode, as every one of these is, but also it's just a class battle to listen to.
It's an absolute mental battle.
It's one of our faves, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bizarre. It's one of the weirdest battles I've ever read or talked about. It's a corker.
Yeah, it's not something you think would exist in real life, but it's very good. Carrying on, these Welsh victories at Llandale Fawr and Moelyddon, they set Edward's campaign back months, basically, while he had to raise fresh armies and supplies to sort of keep the invasion going. Llywelyn tried to take advantage of this by making an expedition into mid-Wales to inspire and rally support back home. The territories he was carving into were ruled by these marcher lords that I'd mentioned earlier. So these lords were there to guard the border between Wales and England, and they had special dispensations afforded to them, usually enjoying a fair bit of independence from King Edward and allowed to run their lands almost as they saw fit, basically. So these guys were, in a way, a law unto themselves in their own lands, and they got sort of a bit of preferential treatment because they were sort of holding the water back, if you like, from Wales. Some of these lords were on the fence as to whether they should support Llywelyn after the early run of victories, but there were three big players that were die-hard Edward supporters: Roger Lestrange, John Gifford, and Edmund Mortimer. So these guys were big-time names in the martial lord regions, and they were situated in mid-Wales with an army consisting mainly of archers and some heavy horse when Llywelyn was sort of marching towards them. They had a big boost to their numbers thanks to another Welsh lord called Gruffudd ap Gwenwynyn, who donated a bunch of troops to them. So a bit of background for him, why this Welsh lord was being a dirty little turncoat. Gruffudd's father had been exiled by Llywelyn the Great when he was just a child.
Llywelyn the Great was Llywelyn this Llywelyn's granddad, wasn't it, or father?
I think it was his granddad. I should have double checked that. Really, classic our history podcast, not bloody I think it checking is his our granddad. Friends, but yeah, that's it. So this is like a couple of generations of exiles there from many a Llywelyn. So he was a bit embittered against current Llywelyn, which is why he had a bit of a bone to pick with him, and he donated these big number of troops to these martial lords to help fight off Llywelyn. So all in all, the English, with the boost from Gruffudd, had around 5,000 infantry and about 1,300 heavy horse. We've talked before about how devastating these heavy horse can be on an open field, so 1,300 of them is a real big threat, not to be messed with. So the battle itself started on 11th of December, 1282, with Llywelyn's army occupying a hill near the village of Kilmary. So they were poised there, ready to repel any assault from the south across the Orewin bridge. Llywelyn had around 7,000 infantry and 160 taili. So taili, Welsh word for family, were like the best Welsh knights, essentially. They were these heavily armoured cavalry units tasked with looking after the royals or, people of high station on the battlefield.
Sounds
You've seen Game of Thrones. I like to think of them as like the King's Guard, they're quite cool.
Or if you watch Fast and the Furious, it's what Triple X likes to call those around him.
Yeah, that is much better, actually.
It's my
Scrap what I just said. Yeah, it's Dom Toretto, it's fucking Brian O'Connor, it's the rest of them, and they go around in Mustangs, and they just educate you on why family's important. That's a much better idea.
So say those numbers again. I think I got that. That was
7,000 infantry and then 160 Dom Toretto Fast and Furious families.
And that's against 500 infantry from the English and 1,300 cavalry.
5,000 infantry, 1,300 cavalry.
Sorry, yeah. And most of the infantry was archers.
Yeah, vast majority of them, yeah. So you'd think from, again, I know we always make this comparison, but from playing medieval Total War, I'd almost click the automatically resolve button for this because I think 7,000 and some change is going to beat theirs. But it's all up for grabs. So the Welsh also had within their army a few local archers from Brecon. They'd betrayed the English after they'd lost Battle of Llandaleivawr, basically. So they were sick of their rule, and they'd sort of jumped in on the hype wagon as well into Llywelyn's rebellion. Llywelyn himself wasn't positioned with his army. He'd gone to speak with local leaders at Builth Castle, and a devious local had informed the martial lords of a ford a couple of miles downstream where the men could cross sort of like shallow part of the river.
So to get this right, can I just...
Yeah, sorry.
So at the moment, the Welsh are positioned blocking off a bridge so the English can't throw their horses at them and attack them. So they have enough men blocking the bridge, and then they have their men waiting on a hill. So strategically, they're safe. They can't be attacked. But like you said, this little snitch had told the English of a ford a little bit down the road where people could cross, which the Welsh were unaware of.
Yeah, I was unaware what a ford was. I had to look that up. Apparently it's just like a shallow crossing in a river.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of river.
Yeah, because I was like, a ford. Yeah. He was like, you showed me where a ford was. And I was like, like in Fast and the Furious films, a ford. I get it.
Or an absolute fjord in the fucking Norwegian hills.
A fjord, my lord. Yeah.
But it's just a small river that's very maneuverable across.
Essentially, yeah. So this guy, this little local, was basically like that Ephialtes from the film 300, little fucking weasel. Yeah. He led them to a little, sneaky cheating path, basically. So the lords sent their archers downstream across this ford, and they just started to rain down arrows on the Welsh. So the Welsh were obviously taken by surprise by this, but turned to face their attacking archers and tried somewhat to mount a defence. The rest of the English army could now cross the undefended Orewin bridge because the Welsh had turned to face the attacking archers. The English archers concentrated their fire on the Welsh schiltrons. So I had to look this up as well, what these were. These are basically a term for compact groups of troops. They were designed to create like the shield walls, like from Last Kingdom.
Yeah, these ones, I really like them. They do them a lot in this time in history. So William Wallace was really effective using them. Often they're spearmen, so they have really long pikes or spears, and they go in a tight circle formation, so horses couldn't really smash into them because they'd get hit by the spears. And the Welsh had adopted that position for ages, and often you'd have links of chainmail links of like metal connecting children, so horses couldn't crash through them and overrun them. But if you picture this, they're all in a big circle, but they're so tightly packed like sardines. The English archers were absolutely decimating them.
This disorganised the Welsh formations, and before they could get their shit together, the English heavy horse had made it across the bridge and smashed them from behind. So we talked about the heavy horse a lot in the past on various episodes, and the Welsh have often been protected from these thanks to the sort of unforgiving terrain, just sort of neuters the heavy horse and sort of takes away their advantage. But because they were on the open field, these guys were just fucking deadly. I was doing a bit of research on them. Do you know they're over 500 kilos in weight?
Wow.
That's just pure muscle and armour, and they can run at 40 mile an hour. So this particular English army had 1,300 of them, so that's pretty fucking devastating.
It's so scary.
In these chilterns or not. Yeah, it's even in these chilterns, like you said, they're effective defences because they'd been peppered and they were a bit sort of disorganised. They would have just been run absolutely ragged.
I read because they were leaderless and demoralised because Llywelyn had gone off to speak to these new people, to try and get more people. That they would start to try and run up the hill, and as they run up the hill, that's when the horses came in and like clattered them. And it's a pretty grim image, like being sardine next to your fellow countrymen getting kebabbed and skewed by arrows, and the next thing you just have these like tanks of horses running you down.
You just wouldn't know which way was up, would you? Because it all, to them, I imagine, happened all so fast.
That sounds like a Nan thing to say. That sounds such a you don't know what way is up.
Which way was bloody up, would you?
Don't know if you're coming or going.
Yeah, it's really good euphemisms for what it would no doubt be a real bloody and brutal battle.
I don't know what way is up.
Just don't like the idea. I just don't like the idea of the nastiness of it all. Just trying to take the edge off a little bit. But back to reality from with Nana Jack. The Welsh had been well and truly routed here, taking huge losses. They began to flee just as Llywelyn was returning from these talks with the other lords in Builth Castle. He was on the outskirts of the fighting as he was cut down by an English man-at-arms named Stephen de Frankton. So that's not the most glorious of endings to the dear leader, to be honest.
Well, there's other rumours.
There we go. Such as war, isn't it?
There's about 3 different rumours about how he died. So one version is he was killed by the English man-at-arms, who is a leader of an English centenarer, which is a word for a man in charge of 100 archers. So he was reportedly killed by Stephen Frankton, and they didn't realise at the time that he was Llywelyn in Llywolaf or Llywelyn ap Gruffudd. So we say Llywelyn in Llywolaf. He's the same person as Llywelyn ap Gruffudd. It's just in Welsh that means our last king, the last of us.
Yeah, it's not quite a direct translation, is it? Because it's like our last colour, but it kind of means like last of our flag, last of our
he was the last,
like last of our line or something.
He was the last true king of Wales. Others say there's another account that he was chased into the woods and surrounded by a garrison and killed. So there's different rumours, but the most agreed upon one was Stephen de Frankton.
Yeah, and as you said, his body actually wasn't discovered until the next day, because sources suggest he'd been in sort of like incognito for his meeting. He wouldn't be wearing his sort of typical clothing like his tabard, or I think it's a tabard, is it?
I don't know. It sounds like an old-fashioned thing. Can I tell you what happened?
Let's just go with that
to his head. I'm not sure if you're going to cover this, so apologies if you were.
Oh yeah, that was my next point. But you go ahead. You can give it a bit of flair.
So I was going to say that. So afterwards, they chopped his head off, and it was then sent to Edward at Llywelyn, which was a place in North Wales. And after that, it was being shown to the English troops based in Anglesey. Edward then sent it to London, and then in London, it was set upon a pillory for an entire day, and is crowned with ivy to show that he was, in quotations, king of outlaws, which is a mockery of the ancient Welsh prophecy, which said that a Welshman would one day be crowned in London as king of whole of Britain. Then it was carried by a horseman on the point of his lance to the Tower of London and set up over the gate, and it was still on the Tower of London for 15 years.
Yeah, a bit grim, innit?
Yeah. This is the same man. This is Edward Longshanks, who's depicted in Braveheart as, that cruel English king, Hammer of the Scots.
The most ruthless man to ever sit on the throne of England.
Yeah, he was a bastard.
He was a nasty bastard.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, though, I think it says a lot about how much of a pain in the arse Llywelyn was to Edward, that he afforded him such a, disrespectful end.
I read this, so Llywelyn started fighting against Edward's dad when he was 20 years old, and he successfully fought off the English for 40 years. So he died as a 61-year-old man, still being a king. And I'll talk about this a little bit later on, but I'll let you finish off this battle a second.
Yeah, so that's basically effectively the end when Llywelyn was killed. The sort of immediate aftermath of that is the Welsh crown fell to his brother David then. He led, a guerrilla war against the English for about 10 months, I think it was.
Yeah.
But it was the last sort of death knells of the rebellion, really. He was eventually betrayed, captured and executed. And he had a bit of a nasty end himself. He was the first prominent person in recorded history to have been hung, drawn and quartered. He was dragged through the streets of Shrewsbury attached to a horse's tail, hanged alive, revived, disemboweled, and then his entrails were burned in front of him. They then cut his body into 4 quarters. So
Jesus.
Quite similar to what happened old Braveheart in the film.
It is, yeah,
basically, I was thinking when I was reading that, it's basically the exact scene for scene.
That's what it. So that's what another thing that they say when they, because apparently another rumor was that Llywelyn was chased down on horse and speared, which is exactly what happened in the Battle of Stirling to Braveheart, to William Wallace, and this was written about 50 years later. So people think that they've just made the same story up twice. But it's a similar demise. But did you know what else they did? Edward did.
Those bastards know we have the internet to check these things.
Well, Edward really was delighted with this because he'd hated Llywelyn for years, and Llywelyn had cost him so much money and time, and he wasn't ready for that resistance. He really humiliated the dynasty of Gwynedd, which is where Llywelyn was from. He took all their insignia, took everything down that would ever be representative of Wales, had a really solemn, have everyone come out and pay their treaties and whatever. This was the very last Welsh dynasty, the very last Welsh king. Edward burned Llywelyn's brothers, Llywelyn and Llywelyn's wives' metal insignias and turned them into a cup to drink out of. And he got real delight from doing so.
Christ. To have another quote from Django Unchained in this one episode. I think you're a sore loser. I think you're an abysmal winner. Boom. Just fucking told you, Edward.
Yeah. And like we said, this was the last war of independence. I don't know why they say that, because Glyndŵr tries to have one as well, but maybe because it's not a monarch.
Yeah, I think even though he is considered, I think he was he officially crowned Prince of Wales? I can't remember now, but he's not of the bloodline, is he, sort of thing. So in terms of monarchy,
and
it is the last time a Welsh prince did it.
And Llywelyn was actually, for the first time in history, acknowledged as a king of Wales by Edward's father, Henry V, I think. He, after like a humiliating defeat by Llywelyn, so Edward's father acknowledged him as the first ever king of Wales.
Henry with a bit of humility in, his position and whatever, respect where respect's due type thing.
Yeah. There's been Henry had suffered too many defeats and was going through too much stuff in England, so he agreed that if Llywelyn would pay treaty to him every year, that he would actually be the King of Wales. That's the thing with why Llywelyn was so important, because he ruled and fought for over 40 years, and no other one in Wales had been able to control or keep. That takes us on to our final 2 segments. I say final, we only have 2 segments on this. But we have Man of the Match and Dick of the Day, and that's where we decide who we think is the most important part or figure or section of a battle or moment in history. And then the Dick of the Day, the person who's the real villain of the piece, the person who's fucked it up. I've explained that so poorly, but I'm tired. I've had about 4 cans, so I've left. For
any of you nerds who don't know, those are sporting terms, okay? So get with the program, yeah.
Jack, once again, I've said this 1,000 times. Jack isn't a football fan, but he's absolutely taken on board the importance of Man of the Match and Dick of the Day.
Our audience know, mate, that they know that was an in-joke between me and them. They're like,
I gotta stop thinking
Jack.
that this will be the first episode. So by now you should know what these segments are. And our Man of the Match we'll start with then. So we're going to give this to who we think is the most worthy of recognition for this battle.
So I struggle with this, mate, and I think I might have gone. Tell me if I've gone about this the wrong way. But I know we usually do battles where the Welsh have won, and been successful. So the Man of the Match is quite a nice title to give to someone who's given us the W, basically. But this time I've done the Man of the Match as in who has won the match for the victor, which in this case happens to be the English.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. I was thinking, we only do things where Wales comes across as well. But yeah. I was true to my country, and I wasn't a little turncoat like you, and I've managed to sneak one in. So,
yeah.
But I'll let you go first, because it is a toughie.
Okay, I've absolutely turned, and not nicely. I'm not happy about it, But there we are. Although it pains me to say, I'd say the Man of the Match and the guy who got the victory, I think, is the little bloody hunchback from 300, Ephialtes, bloody rat guy. Yeah, I've just got these. To me, it's happened the exact same way as well. Edward I is bloody Xerxes offering him amputee prozzies, while there's a guy with a fucking goat head that plays a fucking flute in one of the tents or something like that. And this guy's going, "I want a uniform." Right at the end, and
people
then he gets a.
Just in case people don't get the 300 references, Jack's saying that the person who should win it is the guy who told them where the ford was and could literally sold Wales down the river and said, "Come down this way." So he's the one who made the archers go down across the river and shoot across at the Welsh people. Correct?
Yeah, so I'm not saying what he did was right, but I'm saying in terms of who got the victory, he's the man of the match, isn't he? I'm sure the English would think very much so. He, without his help, it would have been a much tougher battle.
Well, mine is, now this sounds conflicted, but I think Llywelyn ein Llywelyn, so Llywelyn ap Griffiths, like I said 1,000 times, it's the same person, but he's known in history as Llywelyn ein Llywelyn. And the reason I'm going to pick him, let me give you a little let me give you a little essay about why I think it's him. I was reading about the lead up to this war, and like you said, it was his brother who started it, so it wasn't really his fight. It was a Welsh rebellion started by his brother, who attacked Hawarden Castle and laid siege to another. Llywelyn hadn't actually been part of any of this planning, but felt obliged to join his brother and protect the people of Wales. At the time, though, Llywelyn had already agreed to peace terms with Edward, pretty humiliating ones, but was left with a small area of North Wales to control. But he was actually allowed to finally marry an English noblewoman named Eleanor de Montfort, who Edward had imprisoned when he found out Llywelyn loved her a few years earlier. She was also part of a family that Edward hated, but Llywelyn had allied with, so Edward hated this lady and this family. So when Llywelyn called to marry her, she came across from France, and he ordered pirates to capture her, and then she was imprisoned. Apparently, Llywelyn really loved this woman, And a part of the negotiations during the last time they had peace talks and Llywelyn lost a lot of land, etc., one of the rules was that Llywelyn was now allowed to legally marry this woman, Eleanor. Previously, they'd married by proxy, but Edward finally gave him permission, and they got married at Worcester Castle. There's still a stained glass window that exists to this day depicting the wedding of the Prince of Wales and Lady Eleanor. And I read by all accounts the marriage was...
I love that. A lover and a fighter.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. But by all accounts, this marriage was a genuine love match. Llywelyn is not known to have fathered any illegitimate children, which was extremely unusual and incredibly rare for Welsh royalty. If you had an illegitimate child, they were equal as...
Says a lot about the Welsh boys.
Yeah, but if you had an illegitimate child, they had just as much claim to the throne as a legitimate child. But he was incredibly in love with her. Even when she was in prison, he didn't go out with anybody else. Go out with. He didn't date anybody else. Date's the wrong word. He didn't
he was courting.
Yeah. And so he really was like this kind of old romantic about it. And another reason why he's my man of the match is because apparently the Archbishop of Canterbury tried to mediate between Llywelyn and Edward during this final campaign. Llywelyn was actually offered a large estate in England if he was to surrender Wales to England. He was given loads of riches, a comfortable life to see out his final days. But in an emotional reply, Llywelyn said he could not abandon the people who have ancestors had protected since the days of Cambus and of Brutus, and he painfully rejected the offer. He said he couldn't do this to his people, nor will he do this to his people. So he loved his wife, his country, and he died defending it. And this was his third campaign defending Wales. He'd fought against Edward for 2 previous campaigns, and Edward's father once. So for 40 years of his 60-year life, he'd fought, fighting and defending for Wales. So unlike you, mate, I'm a loyalist. And
what a guy.
I think he was my man of the match despite the loss.
Yeah, I can't really argue against that, mate. It's as much as Fialtes is a big player, not quite as big a player as Llywelyn. So yeah, I don't mind going with him.
Yeah. Well, my dick of the day was Fialtes, the local snitch who couldn't wait to stitch up his countrymen.
Oh, you're gonna love this. My dick of the day is Llywelyn.
Oh no.
Controversial if true, but yes. Just for the day, only the day. The rest of his life he was a ledge, but for the day, for me, and I know I won't turn you on to this idea, especially because you gave such a lovely impassioned speech then about how much of a lovely fucking guy he was. But just for the day, I just think I don't know. I think the idea to go into Mid-Wales, across from Mid-Wales is a bit overreached. I feel as though a lot of this was down to like bad admin. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's almost as if they went, "Oh, Llywelyn, you're booked in for the battle with the martial lords at 9. Are you going to make it?" I was double booked. I'm in Bilth Castle actually with the other guys. Do you think you guys can get on without me? Oh well, we'll give it a go, sort of thing. I kind of feel that this should have been a bit more. I know it's not as easy as sending an email back then, of course,
But you're probably right. It is probably down to poor logistics and planning.
It's like, if Llywelyn had been there, I think that would have made all the difference morale-wise. And just things like, I don't know, the tactics that, this bridge is vital, we need to keep an eye on that. We're being peppered, let's just divert our entire force.
Yeah.
There needed to be a bit more command there. I think Llywelyn, like you said, he was a 60-year-old bloke. At this point, he'd had decades of battle experience. I think he would have been able to sniff out what was going on and had a bit more of a level head when this was going on.
Isn't it mad to picture being 60 years old and being in a battle?
That's insane. I will kill myself if I have to work in an office past 50. So considering that,
well, you gave quite a good reason why he'd be dick of the day. Can I just say why I think Fialtes, this little snitch who sold Wales down the river, because I bet he was like a Simon Hart figure, the Welsh secretary for the Tories, like stabbing his own man in the back for a brief bit of power and status, like this pathetic little worm. And I can picture him saying, I told you, my lord.
Some scraps from Longshanks's table.
Yeah, and do you know that guy in The Hobbit? He's like the Grimmer Wormtongue figure in The Hobbit. Who's like Stephen Fry's mate. Yeah.
A just question, my liege.
But the one of The Hobbit who's so not Grimmer Wormtongue, but the one who's friends with Stephen Fry, and he's like a real.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
they are very similar. Very similar characters. Yeah, sorry. That's why I got confused. But yeah, he's basically the same snivelling little bastard.
Yeah, but he was always dressed in black, and he's got black hair, and he's got really crooked teeth, and he's horrid.
Yeah, it looks like a pedo.
Yeah, nonce. Absolutely not. Well, we're at loggerhead then. So man of the match for me was... We've chosen the polar opposites.
Well, that's because I am a fucking traitor, and I've done it from the side of the English.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I tell you what, I'll do a double agent, and I'll switch back.
No, I think
and then they're
you're
both
right.
aligned, aren't they?
I think we can both agree here. Let's have man of the match as Llywelyn, dick of the day as Llywelyn. Whoa.
Ooh, I like that. That's gonna create some buzz when this episode comes out.
Whoa, man! I can't believe they did that. Can you believe?
I can't make the reaction videos on YouTube.
We're gonna tag this one. We did it. No, you will not believe what happened in this week's episode.
Orewin Bridge gone sexual.
Number 2 will surprise you, but I reckon that's a fair way of doing it. You know, the duality of man. Man can be many things. The faceless man.
I like that. 2 sides of the same coin, you might say.
And he did have coins with his face on it, so that works on that level.
It's all coming full circle. I like this. It's very a smooth ending for us.
Yeah. Well, what do you reckon? We happy with that?
I'm happy with that, yeah. Man of the match and dick of the day, both the same person.
Yeah.
Guess what, Internet? I don't care if you don't think we can do it. We've done it, all right? We broke the rules. We broke the mould.
I was going to see if I got any other notes, but I'm pretty sure we covered it. It's a pretty sad one, because it's one of the first times we've acknowledged that Wales isn't a beautiful independent nation. Which I was thinking.
Yeah, I think it's literally the first one we've talked about this. We haven't, the Welsh haven't won something. Yeah. So it is sad, but it is also such a historical battle for Wales. Like I said, it was literally the end of that revolt. So.
Yeah, and they said that this wasn't the last war for independence, but this was the beginning of the end. Although, if you follow Welsh news today, you'll realise it's not the end for Welsh independence, but it's just no longer a war. So that shows that we've come a long way as a nation, eh?
It's not an ad, just a genuine, passionate plug there.
Yeah. Well, and on that, should we wrap this up and ask people to follow us on Tales for Wales on Twitter, and drop us a message if there's anything you want us to cover, and like and review all that stuff everyone else says. 5 stars, share it with your mates, shove it up your ass, all that stuff. And we'll catch you again next week.
Yeah, the classic thing as well of don't criticise us, just get on with it and like it.
If you've got something bad to say
or
about
don't,
us,
but don't tell us about it.
Yeah, go find your 5 hardest mates and I'll meet you outside. I'll kick your head in. But apart from that, we really appreciate your time.
If you don't like it, go back to fucking Piers Morgan and fucking the Kardashians and shit like that, because you don't know what entertainment is. All right, cheers now, bye.
Bye.